The Breaking Point ambassador Elena Vasquez had learned to swallow her pride. After 5 years representing Earth at the Galactic Federation Assembly, she had become an expert at it. The grand chamber stretched before her like a cathedral built for gods, its crystalline walls rising hundreds of meters into darkness. Somewhere up there, hidden in shadows and artificial mist, sat the High Council, 3 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The Vakros, beings of pure energy contained in ornate vessels that glowed with ancient power. The Kryn, insectoid creatures whose chittering language required translation even with modern technology. And the Solthari, reptilian giants whose ancestors had conquered 1,000 worlds before humanity had learned to make fire. Elena stood in the petitioner's circle, a ring of light on the polished floor that felt more like a spotlight for humiliation than a place of diplomatic exchange. Around her, representatives from 600 species watched from their elevated seats. Some showed interest. Most showed contempt. All of them had voted on humanity's fate at one time or another, and humanity always lost. The Vakros Prime Speaker's voice resonated through the chamber, seeming to come from everywhere at once. It was beautiful and terrible, like wind chimes made from the bones of dead civilizations. The human request for expansion into Sector Gamma 7 is denied. The sector contains resources too valuable to waste on developmental species. Elena felt the familiar burn of anger in her chest, but kept her voice level. The sector has been unclaimed for 3 centuries. Our colony ships are prepared. We have 15,000 families waiting for approval. Families who need space to grow, to build, to thrive. The Kryn representative clicked and chittered. The translation came through Elena's neural implant with mechanical precision. Your species breeds too quickly. Your expansion is destabilizing. You consume resources at unsustainable rates. You must learn restraint before we grant you privileges earned by civilized races. Civilized races. Elena had heard that phrase so many times it had lost its sting. Almost. The Dracon Collective received expansion permits last month. They have been Federation members for only 12 years. We have been members for 33. The Solthari Council member leaned forward, its massive form creating shadows that fell across Elena like a physical weight. The Draken understand hierarchy. They accept their place in the natural order. Humans do not. You question. You challenge. You demand equality as if membership alone grants such privileges. It does not. Elena's second-in-command, Marcus Webb, touched her elbow gently. A warning. She was pushing too hard again. But Marcus did not know what she knew. Marcus had not seen the classified reports that arrived last week from New Terra Colony. Reports that proved the Federation was not just denying humanity's expansion. They were actively stealing from human territories. Ambassador Vasquez, the Vakros, intoned, "You will accept the Council's decision. Your petition is denied. This matter is concluded." The light around Elena dimmed, signaling her dismissal. She walked back to the human delegation section, a small cluster of seats far from the center of power. As she sat, Marcus leaned close and whispered, "That went better than last time. At least they didn't laugh." Elena did not respond. Her mind was already planning her next move. A dangerous move. A move that could change everything or destroy everything. Probably both. That evening, Elena sat alone in her quarters at the human embassy. The building was small compared to the massive complexes other species maintained. Earth could not afford grandeur. Every credit went to survival, to building colonies, to supporting a population of 18 billion people crammed onto one world and a handful of struggling outposts. She activated her secure terminal and pulled up the files again. 6 months of data, carefully gathered by intelligence operatives who risked execution if caught. Automated mining ships with falsified registration codes, financial transfers hidden in legitimate trade accounts, resource shipments that disappeared into Federation military contractors. The numbers were staggering. The Federation had stolen resources worth over 40 trillion credits from New Terra's asteroid belt. Enough to feed Earth for a decade. Enough to build 100 colony ships. Elena had confronted council members privately before demanding an explanation. They had smiled. They had offered excuses about administrative errors and jurisdictional confusion. They had promised investigations that would never happen. And through it all, the theft continued. Tomorrow, Elena would present this evidence to the full assembly. All 600 species would see proof that the Federation they trusted was corrupt at the highest levels. Some would be shocked. Some would demand justice. The High Council would have no choice but to respond. Elena should have realized that creatures who had ruled for thousands of years did not reach their position by allowing challenges to their power. The assembly chamber was packed the next morning. Word had spread that the human ambassador had called an emergency session. Curiosity filled the air like electricity. Elena stood in the petitioner's circle once more, but this time she was not asking for anything. This time she was accusing. She activated the holographic display. Data filled the air above her head in streams of light. Mining records, financial transfers, communication logs between council members and their corporate partners. 6 months of evidence, undeniable and damning. For 3 centuries, humans have been told we are too primitive for full Federation membership, Elena began. Her voice was steady, but her heart pounded like a war drum. We have been denied expansion rights, trade privileges, and representation on governing committees. We have been told to accept our place and wait our turn. And while we waited, you stole from us. The chamber erupted. Some species shouted in outrage at the accusation. Others remained silent, their guilt obvious. The High Council themselves sat motionless in their shadows, watching Elena with what she imagined was the gaze of predators studying prey. These are serious allegations, Tavakros said after the noise died down. Do you have proof that this data is genuine? Elena had expected this. She transmitted authentication codes, blockchain verification, and independent analysis from 3 separate institutions. Every document is verified and traceable. This theft has been systematic and deliberate. It leads directly to companies owned by council-affiliated corporations. The evidence hung in the air, impossible to ignore. Elena saw representatives exchanging glances. She saw some nodding. She saw the beginning of what she hoped would be justice. Then the Kryn spoke and Elena's hope died. These documents could be fabricated. Human technology is primitive but sufficient for creating false evidence. The ambassador has shown herself willing to make wild accusations before. This is simply an escalation of human paranoia and aggression. Paranoia? Elena's voice rose despite her training. You have been stealing from us for years. We have proof. We have witnesses. We have everything needed to prove corruption at the highest levels of this Federation. The Solthari leaned forward again, and this time there was something in its eyes that made Elena's blood run cold. You have made a grave error, Ambassador. You have accused the High Council of crimes based on evidence that, legitimate or not, disrupts the stability of this assembly. You have shown that humanity cannot be trusted with the responsibilities of Federation membership. What are you saying? Elena felt the ground shifting beneath her feet, metaphorically and perhaps literally. The circle of light around her was changing color from white to red. We are saying that humanity must be taught the price of insolence. The Vakros's voice was no longer beautiful. It was the sound of a door closing forever. We call for a vote. Should humanity be expelled from the Federation and made an example of to prevent future disruptions from developmental species? The vote was called immediately, no debate, no testimony from other species. Just a simple question put to the assembly. 600 species. 599 voted yes. Only humanity voted no. Elena stood frozen as the verdict was announced. Around her, the massive chamber that had seemed like a cathedral now felt like a tomb. She tried to speak, to demand an explanation, to appeal to reason, but her neural implant shut down, jammed by Federation security. Her voice did not carry beyond the petitioner's circle. The sentence was delivered with bureaucratic efficiency. New Terra Colony was designated as the example. The High Council had chosen humanity's largest off-world settlement. 89,000 people lived there. Scientists, engineers, farmers, teachers, children playing in the biodomes, families who had left Earth hoping for a better life among the stars. Elena managed to activate her emergency communicator, bypassing the jamming with old-fashioned radio frequencies. She called Governor Chen at New Terra, her voice breaking as she explained what was happening. The governor's face on the small screen went pale. How long do we have? Governor Chen asked. Elena looked up at the High Council. Their Federation peacekeepers were already mobilizing. She could see the fleet movements on tactical displays throughout the chamber. 2 hours. Maybe 3. Governor Chen nodded slowly. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we did not die as cowards. Tell them to remember us. The transmission cut off. Federation security had found her signal and terminated it. Guards moved toward Elena, their weapons raised. She did not resist. What would be the point? Her mission had failed. Her people were about to die, and she had been the one to trigger it by daring to speak truth to power. They took her to a holding facility beneath the assembly chamber, a cell with transparent walls so she could watch the displays showing New Terra. The colony was beautiful from orbit. Green biodomes dotted the rust-colored surface. Ships moved between orbital stations in peaceful patterns. People lived their lives unaware that death was coming from above. The Federation fleet arrived in New Terra's system with overwhelming force. 40 warships, enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Elena watched as they took positions in orbit. She watched as they charged their weapons. She screamed until her voice was raw, pounding on the transparent walls until her hands bled. The bombardment lasted 11 minutes. Precision strikes targeted every structure, every dome, every shelter. The Federation used kinetic impactors rather than energy weapons. They wanted to be thorough. They wanted to erase New Terra so completely that even the ruins would serve as a warning. When it was over, 89,000 people were dead. Not a single structure remained intact. Not a single life survived. The colony that had taken 15 years to build was reduced to craters and debris in less time than it took to watch a movie. Elena collapsed in her cell, her mind unable to process what she had witnessed. This was her fault. She had challenged the Council. She had presented evidence of their corruption. She had believed that truth mattered, that justice mattered, that the galaxy had evolved beyond such barbaric responses. She had been catastrophically wrong. 2 days later, they came for her. The Vakros appeared in her cell, its energy form pulsing with colors Elena had never seen before. "You will be executed quietly," it said. "Earth will receive your body and a simple explanation. Humanity attempted to disrupt Federation stability with false accusations. An example was made. Future compliance is expected." Elena looked up at the being that had ordered the deaths of 89,000 innocents. Her voice was hoarse from screaming but steady with certainty. "You have made a mistake. Not in killing me. I am just one person. Your mistake was thinking that destroying New Terra would break us, that making an example would make us obedient." The Vakros pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Your species has no military capable of threatening the Federation. You have no allies. You have no resources we need. You have nothing except anger, and anger without power is meaningless." Elena smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "You have ruled so long that you have forgotten something important. Humans are very, very good at holding grudges. We remember every slight, every injustice, every wrong done to us. We remember for generations. And when we finally act, we do not stop until accounts are balanced." The Vakros dismissed her words with a pulse of light. "You will be dead in an hour. Your species will be humbled or destroyed. This conversation is over." But Elena was not finished. She managed one final transmission, a message she had prepared and encrypted days ago, knowing it might come to this. It bypassed the jamming using quantum entanglement, a technology humans had developed secretly and never revealed to the Federation. The message would take weeks to reach Earth, but it would get there. The message was simple. 3 words that would change everything. Remember, retaliate, rebuild. Elena Vasquez was executed 1 hour later, her body ejected into space like refuse. The Federation expected Earth to respond with surrender within a month. They expected humanity to beg for mercy, to accept any terms, to finally learn their place in the galactic hierarchy. The Federation had made many mistakes in its long history, but underestimating humanity after killing their children would be their last. Earth went silent. Every human ship in Federation space vanished overnight. Diplomatic channels went unanswered. Trade vessels did not arrive at their scheduled destinations. It was as if humanity had simply ceased to exist. In the darkness beyond Federation sensor range, in shipyards hidden throughout the Sol system, Protocol Nightfall had activated. Humanity had prepared for this day since first contact with alien life. They had hoped it would never come. They had prayed the galaxy would be better than humanity's own bloody history suggested, but hope and prayer were luxuries. Survival required preparation, and humanity had been preparing for war since the day they realized they were not alone in the universe. The factories began their work. The weapons were tested. The fleets were assembled. And in the hearts of 18 billion humans, a single thought burned with the heat of a dying star. They will pay. All of them. For every man, woman, and child who died at New Terra. For Elena Vasquez, who dared to speak truth and died for it. For every humiliation, every denied petition, every moment humanity had been treated as less than equal. The Federation had started this war the moment they fired on New Terra. They just did not know it yet. But they would learn. Humanity was coming, and they would not stop until the debt was paid in full. The Reckoning. 4 months after New Terra burned, the Galactic Federation discovered what silence truly meant. It was not the absence of sound. It was the presence of something waiting in the darkness, patient and hungry. Federation patrol ships began disappearing along the Outer Rim territories. At first, the losses seemed random. A cruiser here, a transport there. Equipment failures, the High Council claimed. Navigational errors in poorly charted space. But the pattern became clear when recovery teams found the wreckage. Captain Vorn of the Kryn military studied the debris field where the patrol ship Endless Vigil had died. His mandibles clicked nervously as sensor data populated his command display. The ship had not failed. It had been hunted. Hull breaches showed kinetic impacts from weapons moving at velocities that should have been impossible. The crew compartments were opened to vacuum with surgical precision. And painted on the largest piece of intact hull, written in the Kryn's own bioluminescent secretions, was a number. $89,000. Vorn had seen enough. He transmitted his findings to Federation Command and requested immediate reinforcement of all patrol routes. His request was denied. The High Council did not want to acknowledge that humanity posed a threat. Acknowledging it would mean admitting their actions at New Terra had consequences. It would mean admitting they had made a mistake. 3 days later, Vorn's ship was attacked. The enemy appeared without warning, dropping out of faster-than-light travel so close that proximity alarms barely had time to sound. Vorn's sensors caught only glimpses, ships smaller than Federation cruisers but faster, much faster. They moved like nothing he had ever seen, executing turns that should have torn them apart from gravitational stress. Their weapons fired in perfect synchronization, overwhelming shields designed to withstand capital ship bombardments. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Vorn survived only because the attackers wanted survivors. They disabled his engines and life support, then left him drifting. Before they vanished back into the darkness, they transmitted a message. A human voice, female, calm as death itself. You have 48 hours to evacuate this sector. After that, anyone remaining is enemy combatant. We are coming. Vorn was rescued 18 hours later. His report reached the High Council the same day. They finally began to understand what they had awakened. The Vakros convened an emergency session in the depths of their sanctuary, a place where energy beings could exist without physical form. They had ruled the Federation for 6,000 years, longer than most species had possessed written language. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had crushed rebellions and absorbed resistance movements. They had perfected the art of control through overwhelming force and strategic cruelty. But humans were different. The Vakros could not understand why. Humanity had no telepathic abilities, no natural weapons, no technology that should have surpassed Federation science. Yet somehow in 4 months they had gone from defeated to dangerous. We must destroy Earth, one Vakros argued, its energy form pulsing red with anger. Sterilize the entire system. End this before it spreads. Another Vakros, older and more cautious, dimmed its light in disagreement. If we do that, we create martyrs. Every species that has ever been threatened by us will see humans as heroes. We risk fracturing the entire Federation. Then what do you propose? We have lost 37 ships. Entire sectors are going dark. They are systematically destroying our infrastructure. The old Vakros pulsed thoughtfully. We assemble the Grand Fleet. We demonstrate overwhelming force. We make humanity see that resistance is futile. Then we offer terms. Harsh terms, but survival. Even humans will choose life over pride. The decision was made. The Grand Fleet would gather at Rally Point Theta on the edge of human space. 3,000 warships from 200 species. Enough firepower to conquer half the galaxy. Enough to make even the most defiant species reconsider their choices. Admiral Cross of the Solthari was chosen to command. He was ancient even by Solthari standards, having lived for 3,000 years. He had commanded fleets in wars humans could not imagine. He had reduced civilizations to ash and rebuilt them in the Federation's image. He did not fear humanity. He pitied them. They would learn, as everyone learned, that the High Council's will was inevitable. The Grand Fleet assembled over 6 weeks. Cross watched from his flagship, the Eternity's Mandate, as ships arrived from across the Federation. Dreadnoughts that could level continents, carriers filled with fighter craft, support vessels carrying enough ammunition to wage war for years. The combined might of civilizations that had conquered the stars before humanity had left their caves. When the fleet was ready, Cross ordered the advance into the Sol system. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of metal and energy that stretched across space like the hand of an angry god. Sensors swept ahead, searching for human defenses. They found nothing. No orbital platforms, no minefield, no fleet waiting in ambush. Just the inner system, quiet and seemingly undefended. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and fragile. Cross almost felt regret. Almost. He opened a channel to the planet, broadcasting on every frequency humanity used. People of Earth, this is Admiral Cross of the Galactic Federation. You have attacked our vessels and disrupted our space. You have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will begin orbital bombardment. Your civilization will end. Choose wisely. For 24 hours, Earth was silent. Cross waited, confident in his overwhelming advantage. His ships maintained battle formation, weapons charged and ready. Nothing moved in the system except civilian traffic around Earth and its colonies. The humans went about their lives as if 3,000 warships were not poised to end their existence. On the second day, Earth responded. The message came from Prime Minister Sarah Chen, broadcasting from somewhere on the planet's surface. Her image appeared on every screen in the fleet. She was an older woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but when she spoke, there was steel in her voice. Admiral Cross, thank you for the warning. We appreciate the courtesy. However, we must decline your offer of surrender. You see, 4 months ago, your Federation murdered 89,000 of our people. You killed our children, our families, our friends. You executed our ambassador for daring to speak truth. You expected us to forget, to forgive, to submit. Sarah Chen's expression hardened. You were wrong. Humans do not forget. We do not forgive. And we most certainly do not submit. You taught us an important lesson at New Terra. You taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. So we will show you strength. We will show you what happens when you mistake patience for weakness, when you confuse civilization for cowardice. She paused, and Cross felt something he had not felt in 1,000 years. Unease. Admiral, you have 3,000 ships. Impressive. We counted them. But you made a critical error. You assumed we would fight you here at Earth where our civilians are vulnerable. You assumed we would defend from a position of weakness. The tactical display on Cross's command deck suddenly lit up with new contacts. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Ships appearing throughout the system, dropping out of stealth with perfect coordination. They had been there all along, invisible to Federation sensors, waiting. You assumed wrong, Sarah Chen said, and the transmission ended. The human fleet attacked from every direction simultaneously. Ships that should not have existed, built in secret shipyards throughout the Sol system and beyond. They were smaller than Federation vessels, but faster and armed with weapons that defied understanding. Railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Missiles with targeting systems that adapted to countermeasures in real time. Energy weapons that punched through shields as if they were paper. But it was not just the weapons. It was the way humans fought. They moved with coordination that suggested instant communication across the entire battlefield. They anticipated Cross's tactical responses before he made them. They exploited every weakness in Federation formation and doctrine with ruthless efficiency. Cross realized with growing horror that humans had been studying the Federation for 3 decades. They knew everything: ship designs, weapon capabilities, tactical preferences, species-specific weaknesses. They had been learning, adapting, preparing. And now they were applying that knowledge with surgical precision. A human corvette, burning and venting atmosphere, rammed into a Solthari battle cruiser rather than be destroyed. The impact killed both vessels, but not before the corvette launched every missile it carried. 6 more Federation ships died from those missiles. The corvette's captain broadcast a final message before impact. For New Terra, for the 89,000. That phrase echoed across every channel as human ships pressed their attack. Captains accepting death to take Federation vessels with them. Crews holding failing positions so other ships could maneuver. Wounded vessels turning themselves into weapons, ramming or self-destructing to maximize damage. They fought with a desperation born from facing extinction. They fought knowing that if they lost, humanity would be wiped from existence. But they were not losing. Against all probability, against all logic, they were winning. Cross's tactical officer reported casualties with increasing desperation. 200 ships destroyed, 500, 800. The numbers climbed as human forces ground through the Grand Fleet like a blade through flesh. Federation ships were superior individually, but humans fought as a collective consciousness. Every ship supported every other ship. Every death was leveraged for maximum impact. Then the orbital platforms around Earth activated. Cross had dismissed them as civilian infrastructure. He was wrong. The platforms were weapons hidden in plain sight. Railguns that had been disguised as communication arrays. Missile batteries concealed within supply depots. Laser networks masquerading as traffic control systems. Earth itself became a fortress, and every ship that approached died in a storm of fire. Admiral Cross made his decision. He ordered full retreat. The Grand Fleet, or what remained of it, turned and ran. Of 3,000 ships that entered Sol system, fewer than 1,200 escaped. The rest were debris, monuments to the greatest military defeat in Federation history. As his crippled flagship limped away, Cross received one final transmission from Earth. It was Prime Minister Chen again, her face calm. Admiral, when you return to the High Council, deliver this message. We are coming. We will find every person who gave the order to destroy New Terra. We will find every person who enabled it. We will find every person who voted for it. And they will answer for their crimes. This is not negotiable. This is inevitable. The transmission ended. Cross sat in his command chair, surrounded by damage, reports and casualty lists, and understood that the galaxy had changed. The Federation's age of unchallenged dominance was over. A new power had risen, forged in grief and tempered by rage, and it would not stop until justice was done. The war that followed lasted 18 months. Humanity did not invade Federation territory in the traditional sense. They infiltrated it. Small teams of operatives, enhanced with technology the Federation could barely comprehend, moved through council space like ghosts. They sabotaged infrastructure. They exposed corruption. They freed enslaved species and armed resistance movements. Everywhere they went, the Federation's control weakened. Human fleets conducted surgical strikes against military targets, always warning civilians to evacuate first. They kept their word. Those who left were safe. Those who stayed died. The Federation had taught humanity that examples needed to be made. Humanity learned the lesson well. Species that had been oppressed for millennia saw an opportunity. Rebellions erupted across the Federation. Some were supported by human weapons and intelligence. Others arose spontaneously, inspired by humanity's defiance. The High Council discovered that fear, once their greatest tool of control, could also be their weakness. If humans could challenge the Council and survive, why couldn't others? The Kryn homeworld fell after a 3-month siege. The Solthari capital surrendered when human forces captured their primary breeding grounds and threatened to sterilize them. The Vakros, beings of pure energy who thought themselves invincible, learned that humans had developed weapons specifically designed to disrupt energy matrices. Their sanctuary, hidden for 6,000 years, was breached in a single day. The High Council members were captured alive. Humanity wanted them for trial, not execution. The trials were broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species watched as evidence was presented. Communication logs showing the order to destroy New Terra. financial records proving centuries of theft and exploitation, testimony from species that had been brutalized by Federation forces. The corruption ran deeper than anyone had imagined. The 3 High Council members stood in a human courtroom, surrounded by judges from dozens of species. The Vakros attempted to argue that they had been maintaining order, preventing chaos, protecting civilization. The prosecutor, a human woman named Jennifer Martinez, responded simply, "You maintained order through terror. You prevented chaos by crushing anyone who questioned you. You protected a civilization built on exploitation and murder. The only crime humanity committed was revealing your true nature." The verdict was unanimous. Guilty of genocide, guilty of crimes against sapient beings, guilty of systematic oppression. The sentences were carried out publicly. The High Council members who had ruled for thousands of years died knowing that their legacy would be remembered not as enlightened governance, but as tyranny. In the aftermath, humanity proposed a new system. The Galactic Concord would replace the Federation. Every species would have equal representation. Decisions would require majority consensus, not dictates from above. And most importantly, there would be laws. Real laws with real enforcement. No genocide, no slavery, no targeting civilians in warfare, no weapons of mass destruction on populated worlds. Some species embraced the new order eagerly. Others resisted, clinging to old hierarchies and privileges. Humanity made it clear that resistance would be met with force. They had proven they could defeat the Federation's military might. They could certainly handle smaller threats. The resistance crumbled quickly. Sarah Chen stood before the first session of the Galactic Concord, addressing representatives from 800 species. She looked older now, worn down by months of war and its aftermath, but her voice remained strong. We did not want this responsibility. We did not want to become the galaxy's enforcers. We wanted to build colonies, raise families, explore the stars in peace. The Federation took that choice from us when they murdered our people. They forced us to become something harder, something more dangerous. And now we must live with that burden. She paused, looking across the assembled representatives. The Concord is not perfect. It will have problems. There will be disputes and conflicts. But it will be better than what came before because it is built on principles rather than power. Justice rather than fear. Equality rather than hierarchy. We will enforce these principles, not because we want to rule you, but because we remember what happens when no one stands against tyranny. The Concord was established. Humanity maintained the largest military force in the galaxy, but they used it sparingly. They intervened only when Concord law was violated. They protected species too weak to protect themselves. They prevented conflicts from escalating into wars. They became the guardians they had never wanted to be, but which the galaxy desperately needed. Years passed. New Terra was rebuilt, not as a colony, but as a memorial. 89,000 names were carved into black stone monuments that stretched for kilometers. Every human child learned those names. Every human citizen visited at least once in their lifetime. The memorial served as a reminder of what was lost and why it could never be allowed to happen again. Elena Vasquez became a symbol of human determination. Statues were erected in her honor. Her final transmission, the 3 words that sparked humanity's transformation, became a rallying cry. Remember, retaliate, rebuild. Remember the cost of complacency. Retaliate against injustice. Rebuild better than before. The galaxy changed under human influence. Trade flourished without corrupt officials taking their cut. Science advanced as knowledge was shared freely rather than hoarded. Conflicts were resolved through negotiation, backed by the certainty that violations would be punished swiftly and fairly. It was not paradise, but it was progress. Admiral Rebecca Torres, Elena Vasquez's niece, commanded the Concord enforcement fleet from her flagship Remembrance. She often thought about her aunt, about the courage it took to stand before the High Council and speak truth knowing it might lead to death. Elena had paid the ultimate price, but her sacrifice had changed everything. Humanity had been given a terrible choice: submit to tyranny or fight for freedom. They chose to fight. and in fighting, they became strong enough to ensure others would never face the same choice. Rebecca stood on the bridge of her ship, watching patrol reports scroll across her display. No major incidents today, no genocides, no massacres. Just the routine work of keeping the peace in a galaxy that finally understood peace was possible. It was not the life she had imagined as a young officer. It was not the life any human had imagined before New Terra, but it was the life they had earned through blood and sacrifice. The galaxy would never forget what happened when the High Council decided to make an example of humanity. They had expected to crush a weak species and terrify others into obedience. Instead, they had created their own destruction. They had proven that tyranny, no matter how ancient or powerful, could fall when confronted by those who refused to submit. Humanity had not wanted to be warriors. They had not wanted to be enforcers. They had not wanted the burden of maintaining galactic order. But when forced to choose between extinction and evolution, they evolved into exactly what the galaxy needed. Protectors who remembered the cost of power, guardians who understood the price of justice, survivors who ensured that the 89,000 dead at New Terra would never be forgotten and never die in vain. The day the Council spilled human blood, they signed their own extinction. But they also, unknowingly, signed the birth certificate of a new galactic age, an age where might did not make right, where justice was enforced, where even the smallest species could live without fear of the largest. It was an age humanity had purchased with grief and pain, but it was an age worth the price, and every day in memorial halls across human space the names were read aloud. 89,000 voices speaking from beyond death, reminding the living why they fought, why they sacrificed, why they refused to let tyranny win. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity made sure of it, and they would continue to make sure of it for as long as necessary, because humans never forget.